For centuries, vast swathes of Saudi Arabia have been synonymous with arid deserts and unforgiving landscapes. Yet, the sands are shifting, and the kingdom is embarking on an ambitious mission, transforming barren lands into flourishing farms.
We're here at the largest indoor vertical farm. Within the facility, we have 27 of these modular grow units. Each one can hold around 45,360 plants. So when we ramp up to full production, we're looking at around 1.1 million plants being grown at any one time at different life cycles.
This agricultural revolution is fueled by innovation, technology, and a pressing need for food security. How is Saudi Arabia achieving this transformation? What innovative technologies and strategies are they using to overcome water scarcity? Join us as we delve into the fascinating world of Saudi Arabian agriculture and explore the future of farming in the desert. The Green Revolution in Saudi Arabia. Imagine a vast land, a country almost entirely cloaked in a hot desert. Sand stretches as far as the eye can see, with temperatures routinely soaring and barely a drop of rain for most of the year. This is the image that often comes to mind when we think of Saudi Arabia. In fact, 95% of the kingdom falls under this scorching desert landscape. There is not a single permanent river to be found, and annual rainfall averages 150 millimeters. That's less than 6 inches. Even winter brings little relief, with most regions receiving under 4 inches of rain annually. The exception is the southwestern mountain range of Asir, where summer monsoons occasionally bring a bit more moisture. But here's the surprising twist. Zoom in closer on a map of Saudi Arabia, and you'll spot something unexpected. Patches of vibrant green amidst the endless sea of sand. These are fertile farmlands, a network that defies the harsh environment and allows agriculture to flourish. Believe it or not, these lands produce a surprising variety of fruits and vegetables, and you might notice a peculiar detail. Many of these farms are laid out in perfect circles. This agricultural transformation in Saudi Arabia is nothing short of remarkable. Over the past 3 decades, vast swathes of the desert have been turned into productive fields. Historically, agriculture in the Arabian Peninsula was a far cry from what we see today. Farming was limited to scattered oases, where date palms and small vegetable plots provided sustenance for local communities. Any surplus produce might be sold to passing caravans. These were self-sufficient pockets in a desert vastness. Fast forward to today, and Saudi Arabia boasts of 35,000 square kilometers of arable land. That's an area larger than the entire country of the Netherlands. But here's the real shocker. In the early 1960s, the kingdom had a mere 400 square kilometers of arable land. So, how did this oil-rich nation achieve such a dramatic increase in arable land in such a short period? That's the question we'll explore in the course of this video. The essential role of nomads in Saudi Arabia's agricultural history. Life in Saudi Arabia has always been a delicate dance with the desert. Historically, agricultural production was a scattered affair, concentrated in pockets where resources allowed. These pockets, primarily oases and some coastal areas, formed the backbone of a self-sufficient system. The produce grown in these areas primarily served the needs of the local communities. However, some enterprising individuals did manage to create a surplus. These surpluses found their way to the nearest cities, providing a taste of agricultural bounty to those who couldn't cultivate their own food. The nomads played a crucial role in this system. They acted as the wandering merchants of the desert, transporting food and other goods between these widely dispersed agricultural areas. The nomads also relied on the settled communities for essential supplies they couldn't produce themselves, like cloth and tools. Livestock rearing was another crucial element in this traditional system. Both settled communities and nomads raised animals, with nomads often grazing their herds on scattered patches of forage. For nomads, this was a precarious livelihood, requiring them to constantly follow the rains and the changing availability of food for their animals. They honed their skills over generations, becoming experts at reading the desert landscape and knowing where to find water and sustenance for their herds. This knowledge was essential for the survival of their herds, which were their primary source of income. However, the Bedouin weren't entirely self-sufficient. Their constant movement made it difficult to engage in activities like weaving or crafting. To fulfill these needs, they relied on the settled farmers and traders. The farmers, in turn, needed the Bedouins' expertise in animal husbandry, A symbiotic relationship formed. Nomads grazed and bred camels for the settled communities in exchange for a share of the farmers' produce. Additionally, Bedouin groups offered protection to the agricultural and trade routes they frequented, receiving dates, clothes, and equipment as payment. They further supplemented their income by charging a tax to caravans passing through their territory. This system, though limited by the harsh environment, allowed various communities in Saudi Arabia to survive and even thrive in the desert. It was a delicate balance, one that relied on cooperation and a deep understanding of the land. Modernizing the desert, the once dominant nomadic way of life in Saudi Arabia began to fade as several forces converged. Political and economic changes chipped away at the traditional system, leading to a decline in nomadic pastoralism. One major factor was the rise of a centralized government seeking to exert greater control over the vast desert territories. Traditionally, nomadic tribes operated with a degree of autonomy. Sedentarization, the process of encouraging nomads to settle in permanent locations, became a tool for the government to establish a stronger political grip. New laws, like the 1968 Public Lands Distribution Ordinance, reshaped land ownership and provided incentives for nomads to abandon their mobile lifestyle. The establishment of a modern state also offered new opportunities. Suddenly, there were regular jobs with wages, and the allure of city life beckoned. Many Saudis, including nomads, were drawn to these opportunities, trading their herds and tents for a more urban existence. While the nomadic way of life was changing, settled agriculture remained largely stagnant until the 1970s. Several factors contributed to this. A flood of cheaper food imports made it difficult for local farmers to compete. Many young people, drawn to the opportunities in cities, left rural areas, reducing the available workforce. Investment in agriculture also remained low, and this hindered modernization and innovation. While the introduction of mechanical water pumps in some areas allowed for a modest increase in commercial production, these changes were limited, primarily benefiting farms located near urban centers. Overall, the size of farms, cultivation techniques, and the geographic distribution of agricultural activity remained largely unchanged. The landscape, however, began to shift in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The government, recognizing the need for a more robust agricultural sector, launched a multifaceted program aimed at modernization and commercialization. This program wasn't just about handing out money to farmers, it was a strategic investment in infrastructure. The government poured resources into building a strong foundation for a thriving agricultural industry. This included expanding electricity access, creating irrigation and drainage systems, and constructing secondary road networks. These improvements not only provided farmers with the tools they needed to be more productive, but also created a more efficient system for distributing and marketing their produce. The Land Distribution Program. Land distribution became a cornerstone of the government's agricultural modernization program. Remember the 1968 Public Lands Distribution Ordinance we mentioned earlier? This ordinance played a key role in transforming how land was owned and used. The plan was simple and offered a strong incentive for people to get involved in agriculture. The government identified and allocated plots of fallow land to individuals, companies, and even special projects. The size of the plots varied depending on who received them. Individuals could get anywhere from 5 to 100 hectares, while companies could receive up to 400 hectares. Special projects like large-scale farms had a higher limit of 4,000 hectares. There was a catch, though. Recipients weren't simply given free land. They had to develop a minimum of 25% of the land within a set time frame, usually between 2 and 5 years. This approach ensured that the land would be actively cultivated, not just held onto. Once the minimum development requirement was met, full ownership of the land was transferred to the recipient. By 1989, this program had a significant impact. Over 1.5 million hectares of land had been distributed. Who were the biggest beneficiaries of this initiative? Special agricultural projects took the lead, receiving nearly 860,000 hectares, or about 56.5% of the total distributed land. Individuals came in second, receiving just under 400,000 hectares, or roughly 26.3%. Agricultural companies received the remaining 17.2%, which translates to a little over 260,000 hectares. This land distribution program had a profound impact. It provided individuals and organizations with the opportunity to establish new farms and contribute to the modernization of Saudi Arabia's agricultural sector. Vast areas of fallow land were transformed into productive agricultural fields, laying the groundwork for the dramatic agricultural transformation that would unfold in the decades to come. Cultivating success. The government wasn't just handing out land, it was also pouring money and resources into the agricultural sector during the 1970s and 1980s. This financial support played a crucial role in helping farmers succeed and propelling the industry forward. Several key institutions were involved in this effort. The Ministry of Agriculture and Water took the lead, overseeing the entire agricultural development process. They worked hand in hand with the Saudi Arabian Agricultural Bank, SAAB, which became a lifeline for many farmers. SAAB offered a variety of financial tools to help farmers get the equipment and resources they needed. Imagine needing a loan to drill a well or buy new irrigation equipment. SAAB was there to help. These loans came with a sweet perk. They were interest-free. In 1989, for example, a quarter of all SAAB loans went towards well drilling and casing. Another significant portion funded agricultural projects, and the rest supported the purchase of essential farm machinery, pumps, and irrigation systems. SAAB didn't stop there. They also offered subsidies to help farmers afford other vital equipment and supplies. Another key player was the Grain Silos and Flour Mills Organization, GSFMO. They played a critical role in ensuring a stable market for farmers' crops. The GSFMO implemented a government program that guaranteed a fair price for domestically produced wheat and barley. This meant that farmers had a reliable buyer for their crops, and they were guaranteed a good price, even if international market prices fluctuated. However, by the late 1980s, things got a bit complicated. Wheat production skyrocketed, creating a massive surplus. This, combined with budgetary pressures, led the government to gradually reduce the guaranteed purchase price for wheat. Despite the decrease, the price offered by the GSFMO remained significantly higher than what farmers could get on the international market. In fact, by the late 1980s, the price for wheat offered by the GSFMO was a whopping 3 times the international price. This guaranteed income was attractive to farmers, and as you might expect, many lobbied the government to maintain the high prices. This pressure sometimes led to waivers on the quantity limits initially set for these government purchases. Unfortunately, the system wasn't foolproof. Some unscrupulous individuals tried to take advantage of the high guaranteed prices by importing wheat and barley and then passing them off as domestic production. To combat this fraud, the government gave GSFMO exclusive import monopolies for certain agricultural products. They also shifted their approach to subsidies, encouraging farmers to diversify their crops instead of focusing solely on wheat. The government also recognized the importance of affordable water and electricity for agriculture. Agricultural and water authorities provided massive subsidies for low-cost desalinated water. Electric companies were also required to supply power at reduced charges to farmers, further lowering their operational costs. The government's multi-pronged approach proved to be highly successful. The private sector responded enthusiastically to this support, and the agricultural sector experienced tremendous growth rates, exceeding even the government's initial projections. This growth was fueled by a rapid increase in the amount of land brought under cultivation, along with a significant rise in agricultural production. Private investment poured in, with a particular focus on expanding wheat production. Between 1983 and 1990, the amount of new land dedicated to wheat cultivation increased by 14% annually. But it wasn't just about planting more land. Farmers were also getting better at what they did. Yields per ton increased by 35% during this period. The combined effect of these factors was a dramatic rise in wheat production. Total output leaped from 1.4 million tons per year in 1983 to 3.5 million tons by 1989. To put this in perspective, Saudi Arabia's wheat exports were so high in the early 1990s that they ranked as the world's 6th largest wheat exporter. It was a remarkable transformation for a country that is known for its vast deserts. From importer to powerhouse. One of Saudi Arabia's most remarkable agricultural achievements was its rapid transformation from a wheat importer to a major exporter. This story began in 1978. a pivotal year that saw the construction of the country's first grain silos. It marked the start of a focused effort to achieve self-sufficiency in wheat production. By 1984, just 6 years later, Saudi Arabia had reached this goal. The success was undeniable, and soon, Saudi Arabia wasn't just feeding itself, it was also exporting wheat to a global audience. Over 30 countries, including giants like China and the former Soviet Union, began to import Saudi wheat. Key production areas like Tabuk, Hale, and Qasim emerged as agricultural powerhouses, boasting an average yield of 8.1 tons of wheat per hectare. Fast forward to 2016, and the landscape shifted. The precious water resources needed for wheat production became a growing concern. In a responsible move to conserve this vital resource, the government made the difficult decision to end domestic wheat production. However, this didn't signal the end of Saudi Arabia's agricultural ambitions. The focus simply shifted. Instead of wheat, the spotlight turned to fruits and vegetables. The government implemented a two-pronged approach to boost production in this area. First, they invested in improving agricultural techniques. This included providing farmers with access to the latest knowledge and technologies to help them increase yields and optimize resource use. Second, they addressed the critical issue of infrastructure. Improvements were made to the road network, creating a more efficient system for transporting fresh produce from farms to urban centers. This ensured that consumers in Saudi Arabia's cities had easy access to a wider variety of locally grown fruits and vegetables. The strategy paid off. Today, Saudi Arabia is a major exporter of fruits and vegetables to its neighboring countries. Supermarkets across the region are stocked with a delightful array of Saudi produce. From watermelons and juicy grapes to citrus fruits bursting with flavor, Saudi Arabia offers a diverse selection. Onions, squash, and tomatoes are also major players in the export market, showcasing the versatility of the country's agricultural sector. Beyond these common crops, there's a hidden gem in the southwest corner of Saudi Arabia. The Jazan region, blessed with a more temperate climate and better rainfall, boasts the Al-Hikma Research Station. This research center is a pioneer in cultivating tropical fruits that wouldn't normally thrive in the harsher Saudi climate. Imagine biting into a sweet, juicy pineapple grown entirely within Saudi Arabia. Thanks to the dedication of researchers at Al-Hikma, exotic fruits like pineapples, papayas, bananas, mangoes, and guavas are now a delightful reality for Saudi consumers. Now it's time for today's subscriber's pick. And the image we are focusing on is quite intriguing. The picture shows an organized array of bulldozers working in a vast desert, possibly involved in a large-scale land development project. Saudi Arabia's agriculture has undergone a remarkable transformation. The country has invested heavily in technology and innovation to achieve self-sufficiency in food production. Advanced irrigation techniques, like center pivot irrigation, have enabled the cultivation of crops in arid regions. In addition, the use of greenhouses and hydroponics has increased agricultural yields. This ambitious evolution has reached a point where Saudi Arabia just shocked American scientists with this progress, showcasing the potential for agricultural development in seemingly inhospitable environments. In the image, what do you think is being developed in this desert landscape? Could this be another groundbreaking project in Saudi Arabia's quest for agricultural innovation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. A growing appetite. As Saudi Arabia's economy boomed in the 1970s, so did people's appetites. In urban areas with rising incomes, the demand for meat and dairy products skyrocketed. The government stepped in with programs aimed at increasing domestic production of these products. But by the early 1980s, success was mixed. Nomad herders, the Bedouin, continued to play a significant role in meat production. They raised large numbers of sheep and goats for many Saudis. However, a government initiative that offered payments to encourage Bedouin herders to increase the size of their flocks didn't quite deliver the expected results. While herd sizes did grow, the number of animals available for slaughter didn't increase proportionately. The government also explored modern methods of meat production. They established commercial feedlots for sheep and cattle, hoping to increase efficiency. A few modern ranches were also set up. Despite these efforts, by the early 1980s, a large portion of the meat consumed in Saudi Arabia was still imported. Things began to improve throughout the 1980s. Domestic meat production increased by 33% between 1984 and 1990. This increase is even more impressive when you consider who the major players were. While some of this growth came from new, government-backed projects, the traditional farms run by Saudi families remained the dominant force in meat production. While these new projects did contribute to the initial rapid growth, there was a dramatic decline in beef stock production by 1989. This was a drop of roughly 74%. Despite this setback, overall meat output only fell by 15%. In contrast to the struggles with meat production, the story of poultry farming in Saudi Arabia is a resounding success. Commercial poultry farms thrived during the 1980s, fueled by government incentives. These farms typically raise chickens in controlled environments to optimize growth and production. Chicken consumption soared during this period, becoming a major staple in the Saudi diet. Despite a significant increase in domestic production, poultry farms still couldn't meet the exploding demand. While these new projects did contribute to the initial rapid growth, there was a dramatic decline in beef stock production by 1989. This was a drop of roughly 74%. Despite this setback, overall meat output only fell by 15%. In contrast to the struggles with meat production, the story of poultry farming in Saudi Arabia is a resounding success. Commercial poultry farms thrived during the 1980s, fueled by government incentives. These farms typically raised chickens in controlled environments to optimize growth and production. Chicken consumption soared during this period, becoming a major staple in the Saudi diet. Despite a significant increase in domestic production, poultry farms still couldn't meet the exploding demand. Even by 1990, domestic production only accounted for less than half of the total chicken consumed in the country. While there were challenges, the 1970s and 1980s marked a significant period of growth for Saudi Arabia's meat and dairy industry. In contrast, the country's fishing industry remained relatively underdeveloped throughout the 70s and 80s. This was despite having an abundance of fish and shellfish teeming in its coastal waters. There were two main reasons for this. First, the domestic demand for fish simply wasn't very high. Many Saudis traditionally favored meat over seafood in their diet. Second, the infrastructure needed to support a larger fishing industry was lacking. There weren't enough facilities for processing and marketing fish effectively, which limited the industry's growth potential. The situation was further complicated by the Gulf War. During the conflict, Iraq made a devastating decision to release crude oil into the Persian Gulf. This environmental catastrophe caused significant damage to fish populations and other marine life. While data on fish catches after the war wasn't readily available, estimates from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in 1989 placed Saudi Arabia's total fish catch at over 53,000 tons. This suggests that the fishing industry had a potential contribution to the Saudi economy, but it remained an underexploited resource. Innovative irrigation. One of the biggest challenges facing Saudi Arabia's agricultural sector is water scarcity. Saudi's story with water is similar to its story with oil. Just like the vast oil reserves hidden beneath the desert sands, the kingdom is also blessed with abundant underground reservoirs of water called aquifers. For many years, Saudi Arabia has been withdrawing water from these aquifers, bringing life to its agricultural lands. Large-scale irrigation systems have transformed barren fields into productive farms. But there's a catch to using underground water. It's not an endless resource. These aquifers can become depleted, especially when they're heavily tapped to support large-scale irrigation, exactly what Saudi Arabia has been doing. The warning signs were clear. The water table, the level at which water sits underground, began to drop at an alarming rate. This decline posed a serious threat to the country's agricultural sector. Saudi Arabia needed a solution, and they needed it fast. This was where the center pivot irrigation came in. It is a technology that has made a world of difference for Saudi Arabia. This innovative irrigation system wasn't actually a Saudi invention. In fact, the story behind it takes us across the globe to the state of Nebraska in the United States. Back in 1948, an ingenious farmer named Frank Zybach dreamt up this game-changing irrigation system. He even went a step further and patented his invention in the 1950s. So, how exactly does center pivot irrigation work? Imagine a large, sprinkler-equipped pipe rotating around a fixed central point in the middle of a field. This central point acts as the anchor, while the pipe, mounted on special trusses with wheels, travels in a circular pattern, watering the crops as it goes. These trusses are like miniature bridges that support the pipe, and the wheels allow the entire system to move smoothly across the field. Depending on the length of the pipe, a single center pivot irrigation system can cover a vast area, making it ideal for large-scale agriculture. Some systems can cover a straight area of up to 130 acres, while others, with a special swinging arm design, can reach nearly 155 acres. This impressive coverage ensures that water is delivered evenly across the entire field for the exact amount of time needed. But the benefits of center pivot irrigation goes beyond just coverage. These systems are designed to be semi-automatic, requiring much less labor than traditional irrigation methods. This translates to lower costs for farmers during harvest season. Furthermore, the even distribution of water fosters consistent crop growth across the entire field. This consistency is crucial for high-quality produce. Center pivot irrigation systems are also champions of water conservation. They use water much more efficiently than traditional methods by minimizing water runoff. This not only saves water, but also reduces water bills for farmers. The system's semi-automatic operation, combined with the way the sprinklers move laterally across the field, makes it much easier for farmers to manage water levels and ensure optimal water use. The numbers speak for themselves. Center pivot irrigation boasts an impressive water application efficiency of nearly 80%, a significant improvement over traditional methods. The versatility of these systems is another plus. They can be adapted to water almost any type of crop a farmer grows, and the same system can be used to apply fertilizer, pesticides, and other essential elements needed for healthy crop growth, making them a true all-in-one solution for modern agriculture. Center pivot irrigation and water sustainability. Center pivot irrigation systems have become a mainstay in Saudi Arabia, with roughly 2/3 of all irrigated land relying on this technology. This widespread adoption has transformed vast stretches of arid land into productive farms. The government's support and incentives for farmers played a crucial role in making this transformation possible, ensuring a steady domestic food supply. However, the initial experience with center pivot irrigation wasn't entirely smooth. Farmers faced excessive corrosion in the lateral piping, the long pipes that distribute water across the field. The water quality in Saudi Arabia varied greatly, and farmers experimented with different solutions to combat this corrosion problem. A common approach involved replacing the expensive steel lateral pipes with polyethylene pipes. While these were cheaper, they didn't fully address the issue. Another challenge arose due to farmer ingenuity. In an effort to improve efficiency, some farmers opted for a redesign. They installed polyethylene laterals equipped with short drop tubes, positioned directly under the standard sealed pipe, but above the ground. The idea was to deliver water closer to the crops. However, this modification, often done with advice from experienced farmers and technicians, wasn't always done in consultation with the original center pivot system designers and dealers. These specialists consider factors like water salinity and predetermined pressure for each sprinkler to ensure optimal water distribution. Unfortunately, the farmer-led redesigns sometimes disrupted these calculations, leading to potential inefficiencies. Despite these initial challenges, center pivot irrigation systems continued to gain popularity. By 1992, 92% of irrigation water came from non-renewable groundwater sources. This groundwater also accounted for over 85% of all national water use. The convenience and efficiency of center pivot irrigation systems undoubtedly contributed to this rise in groundwater usage. Now, while center pivot irrigation offered increased efficiency, it was not a permanent solution to water scarcity. They essentially postponed the inevitable. The dramatic increase in irrigated land put a significant strain on Saudi Arabia's water supply. Consider the vastness of Saudi Arabia's underground water reserves. At their peak, these reserves held enough water to fill a lake that's roughly 120 cubic miles. The sobering reality is that in recent years, farms have been consuming up to 5 cubic miles of water annually. The situation was further complicated by the limited natural replenishment of these aquifers. Rainfall in the region, as we mentioned, is scarce, and any water that does fall evaporates quickly under the scorching desert sun. Based on research published in 2004, experts estimated that with continued extraction rates, Saudi Arabia could deplete at least 96 cubic miles of its vital aquifer water by 2008. Alarmingly, experts presently estimate that 4/5 of the Saudis' fossil water is now gone. Faced with this challenge, Saudi Arabia has taken a bold step. They have begun to invest in agricultural land in other countries like the United States, Argentina, Indonesia, Thailand, and even Africa. This strategy allows Saudi Arabia to leverage the water resources of these countries to grow crops that can then be imported back to meet domestic needs. Saudi Arabia's proactive approach to securing its food security has earned them a reputation as a major buyer of agricultural land abroad. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.